Homesteading and tradwife videos have had a year on TikTok, leading many to point out the obvious. Social media is getting a conservative makeover. Tradwives on the internet can be seen sporting a frilly apron or floral sundress and rolling out dough in her perfectly lit kitchen, all while telling you about the beauty of embracing traditional gender norms, including, but not limited to, taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, subscribing to every belief and indulging in every desire of her husband, out with being a career woman. Real happiness lays with giving your life away to serve your husband, these videos say. While many have classified these videos as a trend, the tradwives we know today are just extreme versions of the housewives of the 50s, aimed to present to you a perfectly curated life you are meant to envy, all while belittling women who don't subscribe to their beliefs. It is a movement to return to conservative values disguised in a stark white kitchen illuminated by a ring light. Welcome back to Silver Screen Queens, a deep dive into the portrayal of women on screen. There are spoilers in today's episode, but as with any episode, I don't want that to dissuade you from watching any of the films I discuss. And a quick note, thank you so much for the love on my last episode about Nosferatu. I put a lot of time and effort into these alongside working my full-time job. So the support means a lot, seriously. And if you have a film that you want me to discuss, comment it down below, and I just might do that. I've had the privilege of seeing John Waters' Polyester twice in theaters. Not only is it an amazing movie, but it offers a unique viewing experience. Because if you're lucky like me, you'll get a scratch and sniff card before you enter the theater. This card has 10 numbers on it that you scratch when the corresponding number flickers on screen, usually during an important part of the movie. Some of the scents are pleasant, like rose or air freshener, while others will make your nose hairs curl. The odorama, as it is called, is designed to help us engage with Francine Fishpaw, the main character of Polyester, played by John Waters' muse, the incomparable Divine. From the outside, the Fishpaws look like a traditional American family. One mom, one dad, a girl, a boy, and even a dog, all living in a well-furnished suburban home.
Oh, Lulu, your hair looks so pretty.
I know.
Dexter, did you do your homework, honey?
Sure.
Can we say grace? Can we at least do that?
Bless all our needs, our gifts, which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen.
The picture-perfect American family, except Francine's son Dexter has a foot fetish that leads to criminal activity. Her daughter Lulu ends up pregnant, and her husband Elmer runs an X-rated movie house and is having an affair with his secretary. The film follows Francine as she uncovers the truth about her family. Today we are going to analyze John Waters' Polyester alongside this tradwife phenomena. Now, I don't think that John Waters had the intuition that tradwives were going to become popular, though I would never doubt his genius. But the discussion about where a woman's place is precedes the birth of any tradwife influencer. So let's get into it. The 1950s saw the idea of the happy housewife pushed onto women in magazines, ads for food products, and even sitcoms. These ads enforced the message that women could be the perfect housewife if they were only to buy the right cleaning products and cook the right food. Many of these advertisements depict men leaving or coming home from work as their wives hand them a plate of food. And if she messes up or fails to use the right products, then she is depicted as something of a failure.
Want anything special for your birthday?
Just a decent cup of coffee.
You're kidding.
I'm serious. Honey, your coffee's undrinkable.
It's pretty harsh.
Well, so's your coffee. You know, the girls down at the office make better coffee on their hot plate.
But why was this idea pushed so heavily onto women during the 50s? Well, during World War II, as men were called for service, women helped out with the war effort by filling men's shoes. Millions of women worked outside the home, in shipyards and factories, as welders, mechanics, and riveters.
Why did I take a defense job? That's a funny question. I never thought of that before. Do you have to have a reason? We're in a jam, aren't we? I'm sorry, but you'll have to excuse me. I'm too busy to answer damn fool questions like that.
Of course, this is the time where Rosie the Riveter becomes a public figure. Her blue rolled-up sleeves and red bandana with the text, "We can do it," encouraged women to join the movement. Women workers proved they could step outside traditional gender roles and take on jobs that had previously only been done by men. Not only could they do it, but they did it well, helping to secure the U.S.'s victory in the war. But some people were not as impressed and deemed it inappropriate for women to be doing this work. They believed a woman's place was in the home. Even when women proved they were skilled in working outside the home, many were quick to assign them back to their traditional gender roles, to confine them in a box. One can only assume this attitude stemmed from insecurity about how women were capable of working these jobs, leaving men to feel threatened by their skill and work ethic. And this desire for women to return back to the home was reflected in the media made and consumed at the time. Sitcoms like Leave It to Beaver highlighted the traditional American family, the working father and the stay-at-home mother. Now, I don't believe that being a housewife or homemaker is inherently an issue. It becomes an issue when we are fed content that confines women to the role of husband pleaser, while simultaneously degrading career women. It becomes an issue when it's done at its most extreme. Enter to the scene, tradwives, or traditional wives. Social commentator Max Reed says this about tradwives in an interview with The Cut. Quote, "This is strictly observational, but my guess is that the people who are driving the circulation of this stuff are men. Maybe it's a different version of the e-girl phenomenon or the OnlyFans phenomenon. To the extent that I would worry about anything in the future, instead of creating a mass of tradwife women, it feels a lot like you'll get one or two very famous ones and a mass of simping male followers." End quote. Tradwives performing for the male gaze is pretty obvious from their content, which centers around placing men on a pedestal and encouraging women to serve at their husband's feet. This is the flip side to the male gaze. When we think of the male gaze in film specifically, we might think of a car wash scene where girls in short shorts and tight tops wash cars, something that has little substance and is just jerk-off material, positioning women as an object for men to behold. But in a world where women have been berated by men for showing a sliver of skin, while these men secretly consume that content behind closed doors, tradwives have capitalized off this thought daughter rhetoric to make more conservative and modest content for men to consume. Though I can only assume that the men that consume this tradwife content are subscribed to OF models and have Pornhub open in a private browser right now. But at the end of the day, this tradwife content caters to men the same way that the car wash scene does. It is positioning a female figure as an object for men to view, just concealed under the guise of modesty. Most of this content belittles other women, specifically career women or immodest women, while placing men's desires on a pedestal. What is completely ironic to me is that these popular tradwife influencers are profiting off their content, making them the career woman they so often demean. But where it becomes dangerous is promoting this lifestyle of handing oneself over to a husband indefinitely, one that susceptible people may be inclined to follow and therefore reap the consequences. Many tradwife creators have stated that they allow their husband to control all their financial decisions and that they don't even have their own bank account. And that leads people, myself included, to wonder, what happens if he leaves? If he just up and left you and your kids and you had no assets and no money in the bank, well, what would happen? Of course, the popular tradwife creators would have TikTok money to fall back on, but for those sans ring light and a perfectly curated kitchen, what would happen? Perhaps Francine Fishpaw can serve as a dramatized answer to that question.
What the hell?
Coitus interruptus?
Get out of here, Francine!
Caught you, didn't I? Right in the act of adultery.
When Elmer gets caught with his mistress in the motel and declares his new freedom, Francine says, "What about Dexter and little Lulu?" To which he replies, "Those two little bastards are a perfect argument for birth control." And his mistress, Sandra, chimes in, "Children would only get in the way of our erotic lifestyle." Francine devoted her whole life to Elmer, making him hot meals, making him drinks, cleaning the house, caring for the kids, dealing with all the shit that came from his X-rated movie theater, and still it wasn't enough to keep him faithful or enough to make him stay within the family unit. I think the men consuming this tradwife content and simping over these tradwife influencers view these women less as the perfect wife and more as a servant because these men were never taught how to do their own laundry. And the tradwives who actually believe the stuff they put on the internet, i.e. they aren't just doing it for rage bait, do so under the assumption that if they make a man happy and answer to his every beck and call, then he will stay. All this to say, I don't think the relationship dynamic that tradwives promote is healthy or enviable. If we take a look at Polyester through Max Reed's analysis of tradwives, Francine represents the tradwife, while Sandra represents the OF model, aka a female figure that men love to poke fun at and degrade while simultaneously lusting after. The moment where Francine finds Elmer with his mistress is the inciting incident in the film, after which all hell breaks loose. Francine develops a drinking problem, Dexter gets arrested for being the Baltimore foot stomper, and Lulu tries to take her own life after being sent away to an unwed mother's home. Francine is falling apart as well as her family unit, and her house is quite literally falling apart, as Lulu's boyfriend Beau trashes the place and shoots Francine's mother, who ends up living, but you'll have to watch the film. Today my husband was craving a martini, so let's make him a martini from scratch. Did you like that? Thank you. I don't have my shaker, so we're just gonna pour it in. I mean, really, what's there to shake? We'll do 1 shot of gin. The recipe I looked at said 2 to 3 drops of vermouth. So, oh, that seemed like more than 2 to 3 to be honest. And you know what I'm gonna do? Oh God. I have olives. Yum. I think I'm just gonna pour some of the juice in here. Is that how you make a dirty martini? Again, not a bartender. I have this cutesy little fancy toothpick. So we're just going to skewer some of these. Should we do 2? Is that cute? Cute, right? Okay. Let's give it a taste. The ice is melting already. I'm sorry. I don't really like martinis. But I was like, a housewife would have a martini. It's easy. I'll have an olive though. Yum. That was like the best part. In 1975, 6 years prior to Polyester, the film Stepford Wives was released. This horror movie follows photographer Joanna as her and her family move to a small suburb outside the city. She finds it difficult to socialize with the other mothers of the neighborhood who appear aloof, but she befriends Bobby, who is one of the only women who seems to have her own opinions and hobbies. Together they start a women's lib group, which falls apart as one by one the women's personalities seem to change overnight, including Bobby's. It is revealed at the end of the film that the men of the town are creating robot copies of the woman so they will have a more agreeable stay-at-home wife.
I thought we were friends. I was just going to give you coffee. I was just going to give you coffee.
Now, of course, this is a dramatized interpretation of some woman's fears of being a stay-at-home mom, i.e. losing all sense of self. But I feel it's important to note the shifting societal feelings on the topic of working women and the media made and consumed at the time. In 1963, Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, was published, opening with the passage, quote, "The problem lay buried, unspoken, for many years in the minds of American women. Each suburban wife struggled with it alone, as she made the beds, shopped for groceries, matched slipcover material, ate peanut butter sandwiches with her children, chauffeured Cub Scouts and brownies, lay beside her husband at night. She was afraid to ask, even of herself, the silent question, 'Is this all?' End quote." This book indicated a shift in attitude when it came to the American housewife and inspired the founding of the National Organization for Women, or NOW. During the 1960s and 70s, the second wave of the women's liberation movement now advocated for equal rights for women in the workplace. But they also advocated for pay for women who chose to stay at home with the Wages for Housework campaign. But I bet you tradwives don't know that one, or don't want you to know that one. In the 1970s, for the first time in American history, 43% of women had jobs outside the home. The Stepford Wives film was an adaptation of the book, originally published in 1972. Both dramatized men's fears of women's liberation and the emptiness many housewives felt. I bring up Stepford Wives and Betty Freeman's book, The Feminine Mystique, because again, I think it's important to look at the media consumed at the time and how that indicates cultural shifts in thinking about a certain topic. We've been discussing where is a woman's place, the home or the office, for decades. Sort of the conversation ebbs and flows. It comes back sort of every 10 years. So during the 60s and 70s, we get the Stepford Wives and Betty Freeman's book, and people start to critique, this idea of the happy housewife. And then the late 80s and 90s, we get the mommy wars, where again, the discussion of, wait, should a woman go to work? The parents are spending less time with their kids, and then people say, well, can't we put some of that blame on the dad? True. And we've never come to a concrete answer, and that's because there isn't one. It's not black and white, and it should be up to a woman to decide what she wants to do, work or stay at home. And that's really the basis of the problem that I have with tradwife content, is it's so cut and dry. Like, you must kiss your husband's feet to be a good woman. It's unattainable, and I don't subscribe to it at all. John Waters casting Divine in the role of homemaker in Polyester was extremely smart. Divine did not identify as a woman, but his character, Francine Fishpaw, is accepted by everyone in the film as a cisgendered woman. John Waters said this about Divine, quote, "People think Divine, they always think wrong, was trans. Divine never dressed as a woman except when he was working. He had no desire to be a woman. He didn't want to pass as a woman. He wanted to pass as a monster." End quote. At no point in the film do characters insinuate that Francine is not a cisgendered woman. Their only critique of her is her weight, which the characters, especially Elmer, use to wear her down. Drag is a political art form, and through casting Divine as housewife and mother, John Waters makes a statement about traditional family values and the nuclear family. When conservatives talk of drag shows today, they often remark on how inappropriate and maybe even unsafe it is. Oh, drag show readings should be banned for kids. This is what John Waters had to say about Polyester during his and Divine's appearance on the David Letterman show.
I find humor in all the things that are terrible about America and things that people have anxiety about. But the first step of getting rid of anxiety is to laugh at it. So I think they're very healthy movies.
This picture-perfect image of an all-American family is malleable. Tradwives want you to believe in their perfect life, that they're always happy, that their house is always clean, that their children are always well-behaved, that they always have a fresh loaf of sourdough baking in the oven. Film, whether it be on an iPhone or an expensive movie camera, is a compelling persuasion tool, but there is a lot we don't see behind the scenes. But John Waters uses film, in the case of Polyester, to pull back the curtains and reveal the truth and the horrors that go on when the camera shuts off. Francine meets the elusive and suave Todd Tomorrow, and things start to turn around for her. When she brings Todd Tomorrow back to her house and gives him a tour of the place, we see Lulu making macrame art and Dexter making a shoe sculpture, seeming to have channeled his foot fetish into art rather than criminal activity. Todd tells Francine he loves her in a passionate bedroom scene, remarking on how he loves every part of her, even her belly. He seems to be everything Elmer is not. He's gentle and kind, and he runs a high-brow drive-in movie theater, as opposed to Elmer's low-brow, X-rated movie house. At this point in the film, the nuclear family seems to be together again. The kids are back at home, and in the morning, Todd asks Francine to marry him. This, of course, we would call love bombing, but Francine is elated, Finally, her life is back together. But Francine soon catches Todd and her mother making out on her couch, as the two are in a secret relationship and have devised a scheme to put Francine in the mental hospital and take everything she has. Todd physically tries to break up the family by sending Francine away, as well as Dexter and Lulu. Todd tomorrow seemed to be the last piece of the puzzle that glued the family unit back together, but it was all an illusion too. Now, is the moral never to trust a man again? No. But perhaps the key takeaway here is not to devote oneself completely to someone else, especially if you met them the day prior and then they offer up a marriage proposal. But all is well in the end, as Francine's only friend, Cuddles, and her personal driver/new husband, Hines, accidentally runs over Todd tomorrow and Francine's mother. Dexter and Lulu run to hug Francine as Cuddles gives Francine air freshener to spray.
Oh, smell. Oh, everything smells so much better now. Yes.
Francine comforts Dexter and Lulu while spraying the contents of the canister in the air, saying, "Everything smells so much better now." Smell is integral to this movie, as I mentioned previously. I feel like what has made this film so impactful for me is the element of the scratch and sniff card, because you feel like you are there with Francine. Even as I smell this today, I am transported back to the theater where I first saw Polyester, and I'm in that suburban home with Francine as her life is falling apart. Throughout the movie, we can see air fresheners in Francine's home that she uses to mask bad smells as they appear. She inhales the air freshener, and for a moment, it's like the bad smells aren't even there at all. It seems as if Francine is using the air fresheners literally and figuratively to cover up the bad smells and therefore the bad parts of her marriage and her life that she doesn't want anyone to know about and maybe can't even admit herself. But smell lingers, and sometimes you can't truly cover up a bad smell. The relief she feels at the end of the movie as she sniffs the fresh scent of the air freshener concludes the series of unfortunate events and the trail of bad smells. I love Polyester for many reasons. It's campy, I love Divine, and I love John Waters, but thinking about it in the context of an exaggerated portrayal of the unhappy housewife, like Stepford Wives, put it in a new perspective for me. When I smell this card, the place I'm transported to isn't necessarily a happy one. And I mean that with the utmost appreciation for John Waters. He created this hellish family dynamic that I feel repulsed by, but intrigued. I highly recommend giving Polyester a watch, and even better if it's playing an Odorama near you. Thank you for tuning in to Silver Screen Queens. Smell you later. Just kidding. That's all, folks.